Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ready for Rome webinar. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I am the community manager at Italia Pass. And I am joined today by my colleague, Sofia Bragaglia, who is our Italia Pass Italy Experience Specialist. And we'll be telling you a little bit about getting around Rome and some information about visiting the city. I've lived here since 2001, so I'm happy to share some information about being in Rome and my experiences here and help you to have a really nice visit with some insider information and some practical tips. Before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about what is Italia Pass because probably a lot of you have joined this webinar because you purchased rail tickets with Italia Rail. So there's a family of brands, the Italia brands, and since 1987, these brands, Italia Rail, Tours, Drive, and Hotels, have been working with millions of tourists. And our CEO decided to make a product, which is the Italia Pass membership, to help the clients of these brands have their best trip to Italy ever. So Italia Pass is a membership program. It's a benefits program. The membership costs $149 and it brings over $500 plus in value. It's also available when you purchase Italia Rail tickets. One of the benefits is $50 off of your rail tickets. So in that case, the membership costs $99. We'll be sharing a little bit about Italia Pass benefits throughout this presentation. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover first about arriving at FCO, which is Fiumicino Airport, also known as Leonardo da Vinci, which is probably where most of you are going to arrive into Rome, and how to get into the city because it's about a half an hour outside of the city center. We're also going to talk about the Italia Pass Lounge at Rome's main train station, which is Termini. Talk a little bit about riding on public transport, about eating at restaurants. There might be a little bit of cultural differences here and how to avoid some common tourist traps. We'll also talk about how you can get complimentary access to some famous monuments and tours and $100 off an Italia Tours experience. I'll share a couple more local tips. And at the very end of our presentation, we'll have 15 minutes for a live Q&A. So on that note, while we won't be answering anyone who raises hands because we don't have the capacity to personally involve everybody, we will allow you to go ahead and in the chat, there's a Q&A function. And if you at any time have a question, just type it into the Q&A box and we'll spend time at the end of our presentation answering those live one by one. So to get started, I'm going to pass it over to Sophia to talk to you about arriving at the airport and how to get into the city.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you again to everyone for joining us today. Starting off, you've landed at FCO Airport, and you'll have a few options to get to the center of Rome from here. As you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal. So starting from the first option to reach Roma Termini, which is the main train station in Rome, would be by train. Whoops. Lost this slide. While we get it back.
I'm gonna hang on just a second.
Yes, no worries. In the meantime, I'll just tell you a little bit about the trains from FCO. So the main type of train that you can get from FCO is called Leonardo Express. This is a direct train to Termini. It costs around $16 on Italia Rail. And it's a regional train. There are other regional trains that are not this specific express train, and they will get you to smaller stations in Rome, such as Trastevere and Ostiense. So depending on which station, which part of Rome you're trying to reach, these are your three main options for rail. So we generally get a lot of questions of whether or not you should book your tickets in advance for these trains before your arrival. And I do recommend that you do, especially if you're traveling during the high season, so approximately May to early October. I would definitely recommend booking it in advance just because the queues can get very long. The servers for booking the tickets can get a bit overwhelmed. So I would just make sure that you have that you secure space at the best departure time for you before getting to Italy. Especially for Leonardo Express, the tickets are time specific. So I would recommend booking a time that's at least an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours after your landing. And definitely no trains leaving Rome Termini within 3 hours of arrival, just in case of, delays, luggage issues, anything that can be an unforeseen event. And at the airport, you just want to leave enough time to deal with that. And in general, when you get to a train station, I would recommend leaving maybe 20 to 25 minutes before your scheduled departure time, especially in a station like Termini. It's pretty big, so it can take some time to navigate, find your platform, and just be able to find your train. So that's it for trains. For FCO to get into Rome, there's also taxis that you can take. They're outside the terminal and they have a fixed rate of 55 euros. Or you can take a shuttle bus, or you can book a private transfer with us. This would take you straight to your accommodation in Rome, or if you're trying to get to the train station, it can take you there too. Um, it's bookable on the Italia Tours website, or if you're interested, if you want to hear more about it specifically, you can reach out to us directly, and one of our Italy experience specialists, like myself, will help you figure out the best option for you. Now, should I rent a car? This is a question that comes up a lot. It doesn't have a universal answer, but I will say it heavily depends on where you're going. So if you know that you're going to be exploring some more remote, some remote areas of Italy. So let's say, I don't know, the countryside of Tuscany, beautiful. In this case, renting a car is definitely a great option. Um, because of course the public transport is not there are not a lot of options in remote areas. But if you're going to just if you're just going to be visiting the main cities in the country, so let's say Florence, Venice, Rome, Milan, I would not recommend renting a car in this instance, since the best way to navigate these cities or between these cities is actually by train. And inside the cities there's usually a lot of strict car traffic rules, and it can be really tricky to get a permit, know what where you're supposed to go, where you're not supposed to go. um, and again, inside the city there's usually buses, streetcars that can take you all over. So in this case I would say, yeah, renting a car is more for if you want to go off road or into the countryside. Regardless, if you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on our platform Italia Drive. And as a member, you would benefit from a $10 discount, which you can redeem after booking by contacting us. Another perk of being a member is the access to our Italia Pass Lounge, which is located in the Roma Termini station. So if you have some free time before boarding a train, or if you're waiting for your hotel check-in time, you can just decide to relax in the lounge, where you can find free Wi-Fi, espresso, refreshments, free luggage storage, both for carry-on, bigger bags. Um, Anything that you'll be carrying, you can store with us as long as it's within opening hours. And of course, there's our lounge hosts who can also answer any questions you might have regarding your travel or about Rome in general. So all you need to do is book your visit beforehand. So if you know you're going in a few days, make sure to book a visit, and we'll be happy to have you. And now I'll hand it over to Shelley for some information on public transport within the city.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the public transport system here in Rome is called ATAC, and we have three forms of public transport. We have buses, we have an underground, which is known as the metro, that's short for Metropolitana. It's a very easy system to navigate because there's only two lines, A and B, and they only cross in one point, and that's Rome Termini station, the main train station that we mentioned before. So if you need to change from line A to line B, that's easy because there's only one place where you can change lines. And there are also a few trams as well, above ground trams. The tickets are relatively inexpensive compared to other large European cities. They cost €1.50 each, and they are time limited tickets. So you don't need to worry about zones or anything like that. They are good for 100 minutes of unlimited travel on public transport from the time of your first validation, meaning the first bus or subway that you get on, that time limit then begins. There's only one exception to the unlimited rides within those 100 minutes. You only get one ride on the subway. So what that means is when you go into the subway, you can ride as far as you need to go. You can change lines, but once you exit the subway station, that ticket is no longer good for another subway ride within that 100-minute period. However, it's still good for unlimited transport on all the rest of the public transport. One convenient way to get a ticket is with the tap and go system. So it's in all the metro stations now, and it's on a majority of buses as well. You can use a contactless payment method like a credit or debit card, or even on your smartphone if you have a contactless payment method. You just tap the reader, and what it will do is it will debit your card for the cost of the ticket, $150. The only thing there that you need to be aware of is that you have to have one payment method for each rider. So you can't use the same card for multiple tickets. Every rider has to have their own payment method. And the reason for that is if, for example, on the bus, an inspector comes on, because on our buses, nobody checks your tickets when you board the bus. You just get on the bus and then you're on your honor to validate and have your own ticket. So if an inspector gets on and asks you to show your ticket, then you would show the payment method. This isn't the case in the metro because to get into the subway, you have to pass through a turnstile. So we don't have inspectors on the metro because technically everyone needs to pay to get into the metro. So in that case, if you've already done a tap and go on the bus, you would just tap your card again to enter the metro, but it wouldn't charge it again because it's within that 100-minute time frame. If you do need to get a paper ticket, however, you can buy those at machines that are in the metro stations, or you can buy them at what are known as tabaqueria. So those are tobacconists. Easy to find because they're little shops with a sign with a T over the door, or at newsstands, which are throughout the city. Tickets are called billetos. You could ask for a ticket, or you could get two if you need to do a round trip. One bus I did want to mention is bus 64. Oh, by the way, for any of you who are raising your hands during the presentation, if you could instead write your questions in the Q&A format, that way we can answer them at the end. So bus 64, the reason I mention it is because it's a very convenient bus for visitors because it goes all the way from Termini main train station across the historic center over to the Vatican. So it's a very popular route for visitors to the city. However, that being the case, it's also a target for pickpockets. So I say this not to scare you or worry you, because Rome is a very, very safe city, but we do have a problem with petty crime in the sense that if you are distracted and not aware of your belongings, then you can become a target for pickpockets in crowded areas. Like bus 64 can get really crowded. Popular areas like the Colosseum or the Trevi Fountain or the Pantheon. Anytime you're in a big crowd where there could be a lot of jostling, that's prime pickpocket target because you won't feel somebody bumping into you and taking your wallet. But I don't say this to worry you. I've lived here for over 20 years. I've never been pickpocketed. And the reason is if you simply are really aware of your belongings, like if you have a purse, put it as a crossbody bag, keep your hand on your bag when you're in a crowded area. Men, keep your wallets in like a breast pocket or in your front pocket. And if you just look like you know where you're going and you're aware of your surroundings, don't worry, you won't be a target for pickpockets. But I did want to make that clear so that you're aware, especially also in Termini Station. Just be careful when you're in a crowded area. All right, so the next slide is a little bit more fun, talking about restaurants and how to avoid tourist traps. So what I want to tell you about restaurants is that here we might eat at times that are a little bit different than you're used to. So I know typically in the United States and Canada, we eat earlier there than we do here. Here, lunch starts generally around 1 p.m. or 1:30 and dinner around 8 or 8:30. It's not that you won't be able to eat outside of those hours, but the restaurants that will be open are going to be more catered towards tourists. The local Roman restaurants generally won't open before then. They won't really offer dinner too much earlier than then. Maybe 7:30, excuse me, for dinner. So just be aware of that when you're planning your meals. The reason I put check on the bullet point here, which in Italian is called il conto, is because here, one of the things that you might notice that will be different is that most times you will not be brought the check for your dinner until you ask for it. And that's out of respect, because once you have the table, it's understood that you're going to have that table for the rest of the evening, because culturally going out to eat here is a time to spend with family and friends. So the wait staff wants you to feel comfortable that you can relax and stay as long as you want. So it might be a little different than typically in the United States. A lot of times the wait staff will bring your food and then leave your check and say, I'll take that when you're ready. That typically doesn't happen here. So if you're wondering, how come our check isn't coming? Just simply ask for it. They're actually trying to be respectful of you and allow you to feel comfortable that you have your table for as long as you want to visit. Tipping is another thing that we get a lot of questions about. The wait staff here is on a regular salary. They do not work for tips. And so that being the case, tipping is not a typical custom here. You're not expected to tip. There's no percentage that you're expected to tip. If you had great service and you want to leave a tip as a courtesy, generally €1 per person is courteous, but don't feel obligated to leave a tip. So in terms of a couple of the tourist traps that can be common here, one thing when it comes to restaurants, if you see menus that have pictures on them, then that's not a local Roman restaurant, because obviously the Romans don't need pictures to know what kind of food they're going to order. So that's a sure sign that it's more geared towards a tourist crowd. And also what I call promoters, so especially in the highly populated tourist areas like down by the Pantheon, the Colosseum, also the Vatican. You might find people out in front of the restaurant ushering, trying to usher customers in. That also is a sign that it's more geared toward a tourist crowd. Now, are you going to eat terrible food in those restaurants? Not necessarily. It will probably be decent food, but it's not going to be necessarily a typical local Roman restaurant where the Romans would go in to eat. So that being the case, it might not be as authentic as you might like to experience. Since you're here in Rome, you might as well eat where the locals eat. So most times you can go a block or two away out of the main tourist centers and find somewhere that's more local. And then as far as gelato goes, a couple of things to look out for. I hope you're going to enjoy the delicious gelato that you'll find here. A couple tip-offs of gelato that's more touristy oriented and not so, let's say, homemade or artisanal. If you find gelato that looks like that picture where it's just completely overflowing from the tub, that's generally a sign that it's more a commercial type of gelato, because they tend to whip a lot of air into it to make it really showy and kind of intriguing looking, but typically artisanal gelato would not come above the top of the tub. Also, if you see really bright colors, that's usually a sure sign that they've used artificial coloring, and natural gelato will not have artificial coloring. So you might find those again in the really popular downtown touristy areas, but there's plenty of gelato places that are more local that you can look out for. And if you have any questions about places, you can certainly ask us in our community. And I'm going to send you a reference list of some information from past webinars as well, if people have asked for recommendations. So we'll be sending that out in an email tomorrow with the recording of today's webinar. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Sophia to give you some information about the sites.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shelley. So yeah, now for all the exciting sites that you'll get to see during your stay in Rome. So first off, the Colosseum. All our Italia Pass members do get one free tour of the Colosseum, including the membership. This tour features exclusive access to the arena floor through the iconic Gladiators Gate, so definitely make sure to book your tickets in advance. There is a lot of, especially during high season, as I mentioned before, there is a lot of demand. So as soon as you know your dates, make sure to reserve a spot. Inside of Rome, our members also get complimentary access to the Pantheon, and more recently, access to the Uffizi and Accademia galleries in Florence, which is a bit of a newer benefit. Whereas in Rome specifically, apart from the Colosseum, we offer several other tours. Some of our topics are usually guided tours of the Vatican, as well as walking tours of the rest of Rome, including Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain. So if you plan on staying in Rome for at least 2 full days, there's a tour pass that we have. It's called the Rome Tour Pass, which I definitely recommend checking out because it's our main pass to check off all our must-sees in Rome if you're there for that amount of time. And of course, if you choose one of our tours, such as the Vatican and Sistine Chapel tours, know that our members get $100 off on their first tour booking, as well as $10 off for any subsequent tours. You can book all of these experiences on italiatours.com. And if you have any questions, you can always email us. Or if you need help booking these, we're always happy to help. As I said before, highly recommend booking most of these in advance, especially when it comes to the Colosseum and the Vatican as well, I believe. There is a 3-day rule. We cannot book these tickets once we're within, let's say, I cannot book it 2 days from now. So definitely make sure to reach out or, to book them directly online before that date, and if possible, several weeks or even months before. We also frequently get questions regarding the dress code in these places. I mean, around Rome in general, it doesn't matter too much what you decide to wear. However, if you would like to visit the Vatican or any major churches, basilicas, duomos, you will need to wear clothes that cover your shoulders and knees, especially in the Vatican. This is very, very important. And you also won't be able to bring large backpacks or strollers into the Vatican and the Colosseum specifically. So something smaller, for example, a crossbody bag or a small purse would be more convenient in this situation. We also wanted to mention a special offer where we give you free access to a special Vatican City edition of Bellissimo, which will give you insider tips into visiting iconic landmarks within the Vatican for the Jubilee this year. This issue is crafted for first-time visitors, or as well, for anyone who's already been in the Vatican but needs a refresher or wants to learn more. This is the issue for you. So in order to get access, you'll just have to fill out a brief survey, and you'll find all of the information in our community. And last but not least, the Borgia Gallery. This is our gem benefit, let's say. It's one of our favorites from our members. This is one of the only places in the city of Rome where you can access the original ancient Roman street level. So very peculiar. And during your visit to this gallery, you'll hear about, of course, the fascinating history of Rome and the Borgia family specifically, which is, of course, a very infamous family, or very famous, I suppose. You'll get to take a look and hear about the Roman Renaissance, of course. And your visit will be paired with a wine tasting and an aperitivo, which, of course, is a great way to experience the local food culture, all led by one of our expert sommeliers. This is only, by the way, this is only accessible to our members as a benefit. So I would say this is one of our most unique experiences. And if you are in Rome, I 300% recommend taking advantage of it.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with a couple of local tips for you. So you see this water fountain in the photo. Those are called nazzoni, and nazzone in Italian means big nose. Kind of, I think they nicknamed it that way for the spigot on these water fountains. So these water fountains run continuously. As you see in the photo, water just continuously comes out of them. It comes from a deep underground spring. It comes out pretty cold. So it's a very convenient way to refill your reusable water bottles. So don't worry about having to buy plastic bottles when you're downtown. You can find wherever the next water fountain is from relation to wherever you're at with an app that the local water utility has for a smartphone. So I put that on the list of resources that I will email out to you so that you, if you want, you can put that on your phone. It's especially convenient if you're coming in the hotter months. It's not too hot right now. It's quite nice weather. So, but that's just a really convenient way to get your water refill when you're walking around the city. and also very local. A local way to drink out of those fountains, by the way, is if you don't have a bottle and you want to drink directly out of the fountain, you can actually stick your thumb. Locals will do this. You'll stick your thumb and plug the water fountain. There's a little tiny hole on that spigot, and what happens is the back pressure from plugging the fountain will shoot water out of that little hole. So it's like an arc that you can actually bend down and drink water out of. I always just tell people, just make sure that there's no passersby, because it could be known to spray somebody if you're not watching carefully, and you might hit somebody walking by with some water. But if you want to look very local, you could try drinking out of the Nazone that way. The other tip that I wanted to give you is to have an aperitivo. Like Sophia mentioned in the previous slide, you may recognize in this photo the Aperol Spritz. That's a really famous aperitivo drink. So an aperitivo is basically a before dinner drink with a little snack. The one in the photo I have included as one of the aperitivi that I really like. It's in Trastevere. It's really economical. I think it's like 10 or 12 euros for this whole board of just a bunch of different little finger foods. You could even make a dinner out of it, basically, depending on how hungry you are. And an aperitivo is generally around the hours of 6:30-ish is when it starts, because it's a pre-dinner. It's a pre-dinner drink. And you can get it with, the typical aperitivo drink, if it has alcohol, is a very low alcohol content. It's not like a cocktail with any kind of hard liquor in it. Aperol is just a mixer, and you can also get it with a completely non-alcohol drink. So there's different types of drinks that you can get that are typical aperitivo drinks. They kind of have a more bitter taste to them, or you can just get a soda. Any of the coffee bars will generally also offer but you could get a glass of Prosecco, for example, as your aperitivo. And so most bars will offer that, maybe with just a simple snack like potato chips and peanuts. Or if you go to a place like Meccanismo that's in the photo, then it will be a more elaborate setup. But it's a fun local tradition that you can take part in when you're visiting. So that wraps up the informational part of our webinar. Like I said, tomorrow, because it's getting late here, and for me to compile all the information, I'm going to need a little bit of time. So tomorrow, I will send you an email that's going to have the link to the resources that I talked about. It'll have a recap of the Q&A that we're about to host, and it will also have a link to the recording of this webinar. So if you joined late, or if you want to go back and review any of the slides because we were going kind of fast, then you'll get that in your inbox tomorrow. And so now that wraps up the webinar. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And now Sophia and I will open it up to your questions. And I've noticed that there's already several questions in the Q&A. So at the bottom of your screen, if you want to participate, just click on the Q&A icon, type in your question, and we'll start going through them. We have 15 minutes available, so we'll answer up until 15 minutes. And then if you still have a question, do type it in, because what I'll do is also collect all the questions that we didn't get to, and I will respond to those offline, and that will be in the Q&A recap as well. All right, so I'll let you start, Sophia, on this first one, since it's a question about the Vatican.
Of course. I see, yeah. From Todd, will the Vatican be open May 7th to May 9th? I believe so. I quickly checked if there's anything going on for those days specifically. There is usually the metric that I always tell our members to check is, go on italiatours.com, check a Vatican tour. If it's grayed out, there may be something going on. If it's available, then 99% of the time it's there's nothing. In this case, it is grayed out. So my guess is that some tours will be running and some may not. That may also just be the case in general for most Vatican tours within the next few weeks, given the current situation. So if you're interested in a tour, I would recommend reaching out to either us or our tours team directly and check for each specific date. I can also take the one
Yeah,
from
go ahead and
Marshall.
take that one too. Train question.
So yeah, Termini is the main train station in Rome. It is the station that you would want to go to for travel to other major cities. Let's say Florence, Venice, Naples. All the high-speed trains go to Termini. So it is the main station in Rome.
So Marshall is asking, we are coming to Rome next week. With the Pope passing, I am assuming the city will be more busy than normal. So this is the third time actually that I have will be seeing a Pope elected. So I can speak to this. I've seen it twice and how the city gets. I don't think you're going to run into too much trouble in the sense that they do put more buses into action. The city seems to handle the influx. Yes, more people come into the city. There's no doubt. A lot of people and a lot of locals, a lot of Romans will come down to stand in line to go see the Pope lying in state. So there's going to be a lot more activity around the Vatican. There's just going to be more people. Um, so yeah, it will be more busy. Will you be prevented from doing things that you had planned to do? I would say no. There's just generally not going to be the case, but there may be a little bit longer waits, longer lines, and more crowds. That's possible because it will be a little bit busier due to that. But I found that the city does tend to handle the influx quite well. So I wouldn't be too concerned that it's going to affect your visit negatively. I'll take the next one too because it's a local question. Lauren is asking, can you address metro and subway safety? I'm traveling alone as a female and I always get nervous taking subways alone. Thank you. So Lauren, I think you don't need to worry in the sense that when I was talking about the buses, I kind of addressed just being aware of your surroundings. So just regular any kind of street smarts that you would have in any large city. So just being aware of your surroundings, being aware of your belongings. But Rome is not a violent city. So I don't think that you need to worry about your personal safety. Just make sure that you're aware of your belongings so that you're not a target for pickpockets. But I feel as a woman here in Rome and having lived here for over 20 years, I feel safe walking alone at night. Obviously, I'm not going to go into a dark park at night, but in terms of like anywhere downtown, well lit, people are out here fairly late because of the fact that we do eat later. So I think that you should feel safe for your personal safety. Just use any of the precautions that you would normally use traveling in any other large city and you should be fine.
The next one, any advice for being in Rome this weekend when the Pope's funeral is on? What is going to be closed and what areas should be avoided? Um, I will refer to you, Shelley, because as you said, you've been through this before, but I don't think there's anything that closes down specifically, minus perhaps a few roads, but right?
Not as far as I know. Yeah, there will be some road closures. But that shouldn't be too much of an issue because Rome is a very walkable city. So probably anywhere that you're planning to go, and even if you're going to take a taxi to get around, the taxi driver will know how to get around those areas. So again, the worst you're probably going to encounter is maybe some delays, possibly more crowded buses, possibly. I would equate it to being like high season. It might be feeling like if you're in the Vatican area. If you're in the other areas of the city, I don't imagine that you're gonna, I mean, I was in Termini today. I didn't see any difference. But like, for example, I'm meeting a friend tomorrow and we were supposed to meet over by the Vatican and we decided to meet in a different neighborhood just because for us as locals, it's best for us to just avoid the crowds when they get big. But if you're planning a tour in the Vatican, you're planning to visit the Vatican, I don't think you need to worry that you're going to miss out on anything. Just again, just to be, there will maybe be more people, likely be more people. How
How
do
do
I?
I get? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. This is about the public transport. It says, how do I get the tap and go on my phone? So if you have a contactless payment method on your phone, so like Apple Pay, anything like that, then it's already on your phone. That's how it works. It's not an app that you download or anything like that. Otherwise, you just use, if you have a debit or credit card with a contactless chip, then you would use that.
In fact, do you recommend the hop on, hop off in Rome? Yes, definitely. If you enjoyed that type of experience, we do have a bus that does go around the city, and it is kind of, a more relaxed way of seeing Rome, especially, the traffic can get a bit intense, so the fact that you're on a slower bus may help against road rage. I know people have tried exploring by car, And yeah, it can get a bit intense. So yeah, if you just, want to go around the city and it's the type of activity they enjoy, I would definitely recommend it. With what's happening with the upcoming conclave, if the Vatican Museum and Sistine Chapel will be closed. As I mentioned before, I think it will heavily depend on the dates. There should be a couple of days when most likely the tours will not be running, but I'm not sure just yet exactly when that will be. I would say probably this week, Friday, Saturday, especially Saturday with the funeral, it's likely that the tours will not be running, but anything past that is still a bit up in the air.
And the next question is similar, asking about our museums, Pantheon, galleries open on Saturday during the funeral. So I'll just, the Pantheon and museums, those will be open. And like Sophia said, the ones in the Vatican,
I
they
think we
may
would
be
need to double
closed.
check, but yeah, it's likely.
Yeah. This one says, I definitely want to get the app which shows the locations of the water fountains. That's great. It's going to be in this list of resources that I'll send you in the email tomorrow, so you'll have that.
How can we book the Borgia Gallery tour for the 25th? So you should have received an email with a link to book the gallery. If not, or if you cannot find it, please reach out or, yeah, reach out to us in support or through the chat, and we would be happy to book it for you directly.
So this one says, would you recommend buying a multi-day travel pass for public transport? So it really depends on how much you think you're going to use public transport. Rome, like I said, it's a very walkable city. So if you don't have mobility issues, you will probably be doing a lot of walking downtown. It's a relatively small historic center. If you're going to be in town multiple days and you feel like you're going to use public transport a lot, you could easily calculate if it's going to be worth it for you just by multiplying the number of trips you're going to take on public transport by 150 and see if those multi-day passes come out cheaper. I do have information about the cost of those passes in this resource list that I'm going to send. So when I send that out, you can have a look at how many trips are in each pass. There's a 24-hour, 48-hour, and a 72-hour option. And so they come in just under the price that you would pay for I think a day pass. In any case, have a look at those and then you can decide if it's going to work out for you based on how much you plan to use the public transport. And this one is also, can I purchase a multi-day transport pass at Termini? Yes, there's a ATAC, which is a public transport company. They have a ticket office in Termini station, in the subway station. And so you can buy the multi-day public transport pass in the subway station at Termini.
Our Vatican tour has just been canceled. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, there are most likely some dates where the Vatican will cancel some tours. Um, how much cash in euros do I need? Bills or coins? Um, well, how much depends on how long you would stay, I would say. I plan to use cards and tap and go. That's especially for transport, that's not an issue. And especially I think in most big restaurants or a big shop, that wouldn't be an issue. But I think unless things have changed in recent years, the local smaller shops still prefer cash payments over card payments. So I'm not sure. I mean, the amount would depend on how long you will be staying, but definitely I would recommend uh which I would recommend first, if you decide to withdraw some euros, do not do that at the local ATMs, um the ones that you would find along the streets, because usually they have terrible conversion rates. Usually banks and post offices, right? That would be the
Yeah, and
safest.
so you'll find banks as you're walking throughout the city. These particular ATMs that have really high rates are called Euronet. You're going to find those. They're often right by a newsstand. So that's an easy way. Basically, if it's a freestanding machine that's not attached to a bank, those are the ones to be a little suspicious of. All the ones attached to a bank are generally going to be just within the entryway. So you may also find that the sliding glass doors to enter the area where the ATM is, they may need you to insert your bank card for the doors to open. That's something that you don't find in the United States, for example. So if the doors, especially after hours, if the doors to the access area of the just the foyer basically of the bank, if it's not opening, look for a little slot to put your card in. It'll come right back out. The doors will open. You'll go into this lobby area where the ATMs are, and then oftentimes to get back out, there's a button to push and it'll have like a green light. It will be pretty self-explanatory, but just in case you're wondering, well, how do I get in there? That's how. And yeah, how much cash in euros? Again, most of the small businesses nowadays do take card payments, so not a lot. You don't need a lot of cash to get around here.
Is there a separate queue for the Jubilee door and at St. Peter's? Victoria arranged for Tuesday. Doesn't speak to access to the Jubilee door. Uh, I am not 100% sure actually about this because this would be more for operations and our tour guides. So what I can do is I can reach out to them and verify what the situation with the Jubilee door is, and then either pass the information on to you, Shelley, or um, if you also
Yeah,
want
I
to
can
mention.
also, in the Q&A recap, when I send it out, what I can also do is I can send you the link. I'll put the link on there for the Jubilee Pilgrims card, because if I'm not mistaken, in order to pass through the Jubilee door, you actually need to register on the Vatican's Jubilee Pilgrims app. There's an app. It's very easy to register. It gives you a QR code. And then with that QR code and with this app, then you actually book your entrance into the Jubilee door to pass through. Pretty much any Jubilee related activity you're going to need to book through that app. It's free, but it has to be booked in advance. You have to have that QR code to get access. So I'll write down all that information. It's very easy, but I'm pretty sure that's the only way to do that. It's a separate line because of the fact that it's a Jubilee event. This one says, is Free Now a good ride share to use? Yeah, that's a good app for taxis. That's a pretty popular one. That one and IT Taxi. And I'm going to have those in the resource list as well. Those are good to have on your phone.
Do you have any recommendations for Naples? Also, best way to get from Positano to Pompeii, then Naples. Okay, so that is very much one of the areas that you would possibly want to rent a car for, as I was saying before. There are some trams and light rail. There's some light rail that travels to Pompeii for sure. Positano, I'm not, I think there's a small line that goes there. Um,
Circumvesuviana, I
the
think.
Circumvesuviana,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
like a local railway. It's called the Circumvesuviana, and you can get ticket. It runs through the main Naples train station as well. But from I believe from Positano to Pompeii, at least from Sorrento to Pompeii. But you know what? I'll look that up, and when I do the Q&A recap, I'll put the info. Sometimes with the questions, I go through and research them before to give you guys more information. So I'll definitely do that and let you know what the best way is.
Definitely. And
I don't
if
know
uh
if Viana
if you
runs in Positano. I can't remember. I know Sorrento for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember too. And if you want to ride the Circumvesuviana, that is a very, I think, a very typically Italian experience, like very local. It's usually a commute train, so
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
it's yeah. But if you want some more freedom, then definitely
Yeah.
rent a
Are.
car.
All right, so we have time for one more question, but don't worry if you've typed your question in here, we've got it saved and I'm going to answer it offline. And like I said, I'll send the answers. I'll send a link to all the questions in the email that I'm going to send you tomorrow. All right, so this says, curious Uber versus taxi from the airport to a place next to the Vatican price. Well, so I know the fixed rate for a taxi from the airport is 55 euros. I don't know how much Uber costs. I don't know from the airport because I think they do dynamic pricing, like surge pricing, things like that. So I would recommend a taxi because you have the taxi stand right out in front of the airport. And so it's easy. You just wait in line. Uber, the best way, because you're going to have to see in that moment when you're calling the Uber how much it costs. So it uses the same Uber app that you would use back home. You just, you'll call it up. And now actually you can get taxis on the Uber app as well. Local Roam taxis come out on the Uber app. So I would say in that case, just check when you're outside the airport exit and see how much it's costing for you. All right, so like I said, I'll get to all these other questions in the Q&A wrap up. So don't worry, they'll all get answered and the link will be in our community. So thank you everyone for joining us today and for all your questions. If you have any others, please come on over to the ItaliaPass community and I will be happy to answer them for you. Hope you have a wonderful trip in Rome. Buon viaggio.
Thank you, everyone. Buon viaggio.